Hi, moms. My name is Katie Hinz. My husband Ryan and I have been married for a little over 13 years, and we have 4 sons. Our oldest is 10. We have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And so we're in the fun times of potty training a toddler and figuring out how to wrangle his mischievousness. And we're also in the preteen years with our oldest and figuring out how to have those deep conversations and helping him navigate friendships and faith, and then everything in between. So it might surprise you that even though I've been a mom for 10 years, that it's taken until about 6 months ago for me to experience the unpleasant rite of passage of being a mom, of being projectile vomited on. And not only projectile vomited on, but projectile vomited onto my face. So my son was sick, and I didn't realize that he had a stomach bug going on, so I didn't have a bucket with us. And we were sitting on the couch, and he starts coughing, and he goes like this. Eyes are wide, and I'm like, oh my goodness, are you gonna throw up? And he's just like, has this panic in his eyes. So I bring him, I'm like, come on, let's go to the bathroom. Come with me. Slow motion, we're going to the bathroom, and I get there, and I open the toilet lid to have him throw up in there, which somehow miraculously was actually closed, which never happens in my house with 5 boys. And he's getting to the bathroom, and all of a sudden he starts to cough and then projectile vomits all over my face and my shoulders, onto the wall behind me, onto the floor, and about this much ended up making it into the toilet. The funny part is that after I got him all cleaned up and got myself cleaned up and, of course, cleaned up the bathroom, I'm cleaning up the floor, and I look up in the wall behind me, and I realize there's a silhouette of my upper body made from vomit. It was hilarious, you guys. I was like, I'm scrubbing the walls, and I'm like, this was never in a parenting manual that I read. Never did I read that I would be cleaning up vomit in a silhouette form off of the wall behind me. But there you go. I've experienced that. I'm sure many of you have probably experienced that too. Hopefully today you're not experiencing projectile vomit, but I do hope and pray that today you experience and receive the hope and encouragement that God has put on my heart to share with you today. Like I said, my parenting journey started about 10 years ago, and our oldest was pretty typical firstborn. He was pretty easygoing kid. We didn't realize just how easy he was, though, until we had our second son, which I'm sure some of you out there who have 2 or more kids can relate. Sometimes those secondborns throw you through a loop. And, for the first 18 months or so of his life, I just chalked it up to, hey, we have 2 kids now, and I don't have any more hands, and we're playing zone defense now. And it wasn't until about 18 months that we started to realize there was something more going on. And after reading lots of books and talking to parent coaches and parenting mentors, getting lots of advice, we really started to realize that not only had God created our son just to have a little bit more of a challenging temperament, some people would call it strong-willed, he also struggled with several sensory processing challenges. And so those 2 things together, we created a very difficult season in our family. And so starting around 18 months, it became obvious to us that there was just more going on with our son. And we started to notice that he wasn't just having the normal toddler tantrums, he was having sensory meltdowns, which if you have a kiddo that has sensory struggles, you know the difference between a toddler tantrum and a sensory meltdown. There's just an intensity to it that is hard to describe even if you don't experience it. And so we were figuring out how to support him through all of this. And then when he turned around 4 years old, it escalated to just another level. His physical aggression became something that made our house not safe a lot of the times for him and for our other kids. Because by this time I had had our 4th son. And so we had a little newborn, a toddler, and then his older brother were also in the home with us. And so his physical aggression really required me most days, multiple times a day, to have him in physical holds in order to keep him safe. Because I don't know about you, but we don't have a safe room in our house with like padded walls where we could just send him and bring him in there and he wouldn't be able to hurt himself or hurt anybody else. But we couldn't do that. And so we didn't have that room in our house. And so I had to hold him to be able to keep him safe, and then keep our other kids safe a lot of the time. And I remember one particular time when he was around 4.5. It had been a grueling day. I'm sure you can all relate. You've all had days like this where you've had enough. You couldn't do it anymore. You're physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted. And we're coming toward the end of the day, and I'm having to put him in another physical hold because he was just not creating a safe environment for our children, for the other kids, or for himself. So I have him in another hold, 20, 25 minutes, and I am physically exhausted. Like, you wouldn't think a 4-year-old would be able to like overpower you, but after a long period of time, your muscles just grow weak. And so I let him go. I was like, I can't do it anymore. I just literally threw my hands and my legs in the air. I was like, okay, go. And he continued to rage. He continued to melt down. He continued to throw things. And then he transitioned into being very, very verbally aggressive, where he started to describe that he wanted to kill us, how he wanted to kill us, that he wanted to kill himself, and how he wanted to kill himself. And I don't even know that there are words to really describe how heartbreaking it is as a mom to hear your child not only talk about how they want to kill you, but how they want to kill themselves. It was so emotionally draining that I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't hear him do that. So I scooped him up. Somehow God gave me the strength to do it. I scooped him up. I grabbed my phone and my keys, and I got in our car, and I just started driving with him because I just couldn't do it. He wasn't safe to be in our home. We drove around, for about an hour or so. Eventually, thank God, he started to calm down. We went home. We went about our day. He eventually went to bed, which, those days when you're like, bedtime cannot come soon enough. This was one of those days for us. So then, we go about our week. The same things are happening, right? Unfortunately, it didn't just stop. That wasn't just the end of the story, the end of the journey with Sam and his struggles. But then a couple days later, I was talking to a friend. I'm a verbal processor, so it helps me to kind of heal and go through things and talk with others. And I'm telling a friend about this day. And I'm just kind of rehashing all the things that he said, things that I was feeling guilty and shameful about that I had done or said that day. And I just broke down, just melted. Literally, my body just kind of went weak. And I said, I think I got it wrong. God messed up. I am not supposed to be his mom. Someone else could do a better job. What kind of mom says and does the things that I did to my child that day? And tears are just rolling down my face. And my sweet friend, very tenderly and kindly and wisely said, a mom who is weary. The tears just kept rolling. It hit my heart and my soul so strongly, that word of being weary. And she continued and she said, a mom who has poured so much of herself out to her child, given so much that you have nothing left to give. And the tears just kept coming. I was just undone by those words because it was so true. I was so weary. And it was around this time that I refound the verse in Galatians 6:9 that says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if, there's a big if here, if we do not give up. So that's my hope for you mamas today. I'm sure that there are moms hearing this message right now that you are weary. You feel like a failure. You feel like somebody else could be a better mom for your kid. But I hope that you hear and can relate to my story and know you're not alone and know that there's hope and that there will be you will reap a harvest with your child and with your child's life if you do not give up. So moms, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, I don't want to give up, but how do I not give up? What's the encouragement here, Katie? And I can tell you that now, almost 4 years later from that story I just shared with my son, we have seen so much fruit. I can't even believe it, that we have seen so much growth and maturity in our son that I never would have even hoped for or even believed could happen in such a short period of time. And we've even seen fruit that I know has come from seeds that we planted specifically during that time when things were extremely exhausting and hard with him. One example of this is that our son has a self-awareness of what's going on in his physical body, and he has vocabulary and language for that to be able to describe it and ask for what he needs or what he doesn't need. And he has that language that our 10-year-old son does not have. And so now we're actually going back with our 10-year-old and trying to help teach him and equip him in that way. And that happened, that our 8-year-old who's not now got that language and that understanding of his body during that time because we planted those seeds. We nurtured those things in him. I mean, to be honest, out of survival. At the time, I wasn't thinking, oh, he's going to be so good at this when he's older. But it happened because we did not give up. Okay, so that's the hope that like, yay, in 4 years you might see the fruit. But what do you do now, right? You're thinking, okay, Katie, I'm the mom who's in this weary phase right now. What do I do? How do I not give up? And so I want to share 3 things with you that actually spell out the word TAP, so T-A-P, to help give you some encouragement and some tools to be able to get through and not give up in your weary season. So the T stands for thankfulness, specifically having a thankfulness journal that is specific to the child that you're struggling with, or even if you're not in that weary season now, do it now with the kiddo that you maybe just, kind of butt heads with more, or just there's just a little bit more conflict with that kid, because God gave me this idea actually about a year before we started in this really tough season with our son. And for about 10 months, every day, I was just writing down something I was thankful for with him. And then fast forward a year or so later, when I literally could not think of anything to be thankful for that day or with that child, I could go back and I read those things that a year ago, oh my gosh, yes, he can be kind to his little brother. He does have empathy. He does love me. And it really renewed my heart and my faith towards him. And it gave me the resilience that I needed to not give up. And so the A is ask for help. We were never meant to do the mom journey alone. And so many of you are probably going to be talking about this in a group of other moms. And that's why we do this. That's why Substance Moms is so intentional about creating community, because we know you can't do this alone. And when you're in those weary seasons, having mom friends that will hold you up in prayer and pray for your kiddos, especially on those days when you feel like you can't pray yourself, that you have those people who know what to do. That story that I shared earlier about when I scooped up my son, like I said, I grabbed my phone, I grabbed my keys. Ladies, I didn't even put my shoes on. And I got in the van and I quick sent a text to my friends and I said, 911, please pray. It's happening again. This happened so much I didn't even need to describe what was happening. They knew. But they also knew that what I needed was I needed them to pray that God would give me divine and creative ideas on how to help my son regulate and how to get him out of that stage, that phase that he was in, because the tools that we had taught him just were not accessible to him in those moments. And so I needed God's creative ideas. But in those moments, I wasn't able to pray because I was so amped up myself. And so they prayed, and I got him in the car. We started driving, like I said, and about 30 minutes later, the Lord gave me this really crazy out of left field idea, and he said, go to the Andover horse stables. I was like, okay, I got nothing else to do. Literally, he's still raging. He had started to calm down a little bit, but he was still screaming that he wanted to throw himself out of the car to kill himself. So it was still very intense emotionally in the car. And so I just was like, all right, God, I don't know what else to do. Nothing else I'm doing or that I've tried is working. So we drove there, and as we pulled in, ladies, he like melted. It was a miracle. I couldn't believe how quickly he melted, and we got out of the car. Again, we were barefoot. People probably thought we were really weird, but we walked around and we took pictures with the horses in the background and took pictures together. And it is such a sweet moment. We still look at those pictures, and my son remembers the beautiful side of that, the end of that, and how he had fun with his mom. And that's a really amazing gift that God has given us. And so ask for help. Don't do it alone. The P stands for professional resources. So ever since my son was 18 months old until now, we have had some form of professional help in his life. And it took me a while to be comfortable with that, I'll be honest. But I really want to encourage you moms that if you're going through that next level of a challenge with one of your kids and you really are weary, it's probably a sign that you need some extra support and extra help. And I don't know what that looks like for your kiddo, but ask the Lord, ask friends for advice and help. There's lots of people in our church community that can give you advice and help you find the people that can help support and be part of your support team for your child. So the TAP, I hope that you're able to tap into those and see how I did that and use those to be able to encourage yourself and be able to give yourself the resilience to not give up in this weary season with your child. And so lastly, I just want to leave you with a humble challenge, which I know what you're thinking. If you're that weary mom right now, you're like, no, I've had too many challenges already. I don't need another one. Just stick with me. I promise this will be one that will help you in your weary season. So I want to humbly challenge you to stop telling yourself that you're failing. Stop telling yourself that someone else could be a better mom, because that is not true. You are weary. You need to raise your hand and say, I am weary. I need help. I need maybe you need professional help. Maybe you just need a friend group around you to be praying. But I promise you, just like the word in Galatians 6:9 says, that you will reap a harvest. You will see abundant fruit in your child's life if you do not give up. So let's not give up, mamas.